Welcome to Sundays at Cafe Tabac, the podcast. This podcast series is an extension of our film's mission to affirm and extol the courage, strength, and joy in our LGBTQ plus community through the preservation and sharing of our personal stories and the collective histories we live through and change. I'm your host, Wanda Acosta. I'm so happy to have an old friend that I haven't seen in quite a while. Beautiful, talented Terez Mychelle. She's an LGBTQI plus activist, a radio host, a GLAAD award winner for media excellence. She's an entrepreneur, and she's happily married to the R&B singer Monifa. Welcome to the studio, Terez.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Wanda.
Long time. How are you? How have you been?
I've been well overall, outside of, the recent metamorphosis, I'll say, but I've been very well. Blessed. Thank you.
It's great to see you. It's been a long time. It's been since the beautiful renaissance of the ladies in the 90s.
One of the tapestry in that. So yeah, man, you made it. You were the soundtrack of. You guys were the soundtracks of my teens in the early 20s, 30s, in that mix. Yeah. Oh, am I dating myself?
We are dating ourselves. So I guess initially I met you at a party that Shari Nash and I did called Sundays at Cafe Tabac, no? Or did we meet elsewhere?
I think we met before you guys started doing the parties, and then you lounged into the parties, and which were I don't even know if they have a word in the dictionary, but they were so epic of their time. So before their time, actually. And you guys, in such a short time, made such an impact, between Cafe Tabac and Bardot. Yeah. They were just living rooms for multicultural women, and people really, really knew about these parties and would wait. It wasn't prevalent for women to have their own venues in New York. And I just can't imagine if you guys were to have had your own permanent fixed venue, what that could have been like then. Because that was such a fun time for me. So don't let me take this answer or question away.
Oh, please, go for it.
Cafe Tabac and Bardot were both essentially different, but the energy was the same. I remember those Monday nights, and then I forget the night that Tabac was on, but
Tabac was on Sundays. So we were back, Tabac was back to back with Bardot. Tabac was on Sunday, Bardot was on Monday. But tell me, what was for you and for your friends, what was so special about those early 90s LGBTQ scenes and just, spaces for women?
I think it's important for me to reflect back for a second because I'm a theater baby. So I would come out of work and go look to express some stress, right? So at the time, earlier than your parties was the Paradise Garage and stuff like that, where we would really sweat off steam, but no venue that catered to women. So we always had kind of, men had theirs always, they would support, but none that were,
right.
And if you did have women that were doing parties, they didn't have their venues, and it was very maybe once a month kind of vibe, nothing on an ongoing where you could just kind of go. So that was the missing plug at the time when you guys came around. And I love multicultural events, so at the time, New York was bustling, it was a live, really bustling lesbian scene. And we were all underground. We'd get together at house parties and things like that, but, not necessarily being out. So when you guys came around and introduced the idea, and it's interesting because the music, right? And I want to give a shout out to Shari because Shari had such an eclectic mind for music, which is where we kind of met, When she started with the music, it was like a jambalaya, you didn't just get one thing. So you can't say that you're going down there to dance, but you're actually going down to lounge, to socialize, to meet and greet, right? So, and if you heard your favorite tune, hey, you can get up and shuffle a little bit. But that wasn't really the culture of it. So I can't, in my opinion, and correct me if I'm wrong, I can't label them dance parties, but they had something else that was unique. It was a safe space where women gathered to meet, greet, hang out and just love on each other. It just grew from that,
You're absolutely right. I think that Shari's choice of music was something that was quite unique at the time, where you were not hearing DJs play the variety of music that she was playing within the space, where it could go from, some old jazz to a chanteuse from Paris to a house track to some neo soul to something brand new that she just got from Europe or something. I mean, really was a wonderful, and it all worked. Wonderful mix of music. And people would come to sometimes just hear what she was going to play.
F's about the BPM. It was about the vibe, and that's what she curated, in my opinion. And it was wonderful. It was wonderful to hear some of the songs in the crates and wonderful to invite and to see old friends. And then the thing I like particularly about Bardot is that it was a smaller space. So it was very intimate. So you generally either knew the women that were in there or you got to know them really quickly, particularly the regulars. I like to think I was part of the regular crew.
There were so many regulars. And that was the beauty of both those events, because there was a handful of regulars that would be there week after week. So even if you decided that you were not going to come with friends, you knew you can walk in there and run into folks that you were comfortable with, because there were a bunch of regulars as well as new people all the time. So when you're saying that before the events were happening, that there was a kind of your own sort of basement vibe where everyone would come to the house and hang out and I guess be underground. First of all, when did you come out? When did you have a realization about your sexuality, and what was that like, for you, and then also for you growing up in your family and your cultural acceptance of queerness?
It's actually very tricky for me because I never thought I was in. Then I realized that when I answered my mother's question, and then I was like, oh, there's something wrong here for you. But I was kind of very, always very spirited, but I wasn't in relationships. The theater was my first love. So I was always, on the road and doing kind of stuff with that. But
are you acting?
No, I was, at that time I was stage management and doing production,
Oh, nice.
And I just remembered, before I actually settled and said, okay, it wasn't until later on where I actually worked in New York doing something other than theater, and that was for a family kind of crisis that went on that required me to be here. But most of the time I was on the road. So in doing that, I remember coming home one day and coming to visit my mother. And I had maybe 6 or 7 cars in tow, but they were nothing but women. We were on our way to Cherry Grove. So my mom, so we stopped by my mother's house. She lives in Long Island, and she was on the way there. So, we wanted to do a pit stop. I was living in, I think, Brooklyn at the time. So, she is bright, sunny day, and she's like, hey, are all those people with you? I said, yeah, the cars are lined up. It was hot, and, when they got out and they were waiting, they were affectionate and, just waiting. It's funny because one of my neighbors that lived on the block, he's like, you blew up the block that day. And I was like, well, what do you mean? All those women.
All those hot ladies.
All those women, they were kissing. And I was like, oh, did I blow up the block? But that was the first time she asked me the question. And I think I was actually, by the time she actually asked me the question, I think I may have been 19, 20 years old, and I'm like,
what did she say? Do you remember what she asked?
She was like, she's peeking out the window. It was Saturday, so that's the day she did her cleaning. So she, was being nosy. She had a little rag in her hand and she's doing the windowsills and she's looking out. And I see it. I'm telling them to come upstairs, to come to the restroom, and they're doing it one by one and peeking out again. She goes, all those women are with you? I was like, yeah. So I said, okay, tell the next one to come up, And she's like, where you guys going? I said, to Cherry Grove. She said, Cherry Grove. I don't think I've heard of that. I said, yeah, it's near Robert Moses. And she's still scrubbing, and she's looking. She's like, some of them are kissing. I was like, they might be. I'm like, they might be. I'm inside with you. She said, did you know that? I said, I'm in here with you. I'm not outside, To me, it was no big deal.
Right.
And then she said, well, are they gay? And I said, well, yeah, I guess that's the overall word. But yeah. So she goes, oh, are you gay? And I go, yeah. And she goes, you are? I was like, yes. You're gay? I remember she must have asked me that question about 5 times. And then she just went from asking the question to having a complete meltdown.
Yeah.
So I was just kind of like, okay. And at that time I said I had a choice. I have a choice between wanting to manage whatever it is, and my mother, mind you, had gay friends growing up. I remember my Uncle Lou, who wore the bracelets and the caftans, and he was always accepted in our home, and kind of so I didn't know that would ever be an issue.
Right.
When I came to terms, personally, just it's kind of like, oh, I like her. She's beautiful.
And it never was an issue for you because you just thought, this is who I am. My family's going to be fine.
Yeah. And that was it, And I didn't have a technical girlfriend until like maybe 19, somewhere in there, and I was fine. She, however, had a complete meltdown. So I had a choice. I said, okay, do I try to talk her up off the floor and my friends are in and out, or do I just, close her room door, tell her I love her and go on to Cherry Grove? And when I attempted to talk her off the floor, she got a little hostile in the mouth. And so I said, okay, so I'm gonna leave you to you. This is your home. I'm gonna respect, what you need to go through, but that's not my journey, and I don't want that to be my journey. My journey is not violent for me. So when the last one finished, we got in the cars and we went on to Cherry Grove and had a great time, and that was it.
Yeah.
And I followed up with her later.
And then how was that follow up? Did she kind of like come to terms, and did she ever say, oh, I knew, but I didn't want to know, kind of thing?
No, my mother is an interesting. No, she didn't. The follow up took almost a year. I'll say, because she didn't want to come to the phone, but I called and checked on her, through my siblings, but she didn't actually come around. But again, I was very clear at that time about what I was going to accept about myself, and it wasn't a horror story for me. That wasn't the life I was living. I had a lot of lovely friends, loving friends, lovely experiences. I was living my life in an open, and this could not, change or haunt any of that. And I'm so grateful. And I don't know where that came from, Wanda. I really don't.
It's
I don't know where it came
from. Because so many people like have a hard time accepting their own queerness. But I guess they're afraid of being rejected by their families or their peers or their colleagues or their friends,
It's funny, when I was in school, I went to NYU. When I was in school, I became familiar with houses. And there was a time around when Jeannie Livingston was doing Paris is Burning.
Yes.
And we hung out.
Houses meaning the ballroom houses, for those that may not understand what that is. Yeah.
Yes, the whole ballroom culture, and I was young. I must have been about maybe, I don't know, young. But I was clear that you can choose a family as well, know. And that became very reflective in my life today, but that followed me. It stuck with me, because if anybody makes the choice, and this is, again, in my adult head now, right? But, what I explain to either kids that I counsel, in a sense, that do have problems with their coming out stories or struggling through their sexuality and telling their families, what I tell them is that, family in the traditional sense, meaning the word that we were taught it was, can be so much different, and say you have a brother or a sister that's, not necessarily accepting of you, like, who puts somebody, can you realize how bananas it is that somebody would sit and want to wrangle you to be accepted by them for your life? That's weird to me. It always has been. It's like, who put you in charge of the acceptance committee?
Yeah,
you know what
exactly.
I mean? It's like, but at the same time, you don't want to go through that emotional turmoil with someone that you love that doesn't want to accept you because of who you are.
Right.
And I've always defined my sexuality as who I am, not what I do. Would I be gay if I chose to be abstinent? Absolutely. It's not what I do, it's who I am. So you're ultimately rejecting me. Why? Because you don't like it?
Right.
Okay.
Because it makes you uncomfortable? Right.
Yeah. And then when you drill down, and they don't really have a reason, it's just that it doesn't fit there or whatever, until they have grown a bit, learned more, or experienced more. It's a whole lot of things, or maybe some religious, beliefs, which you don't tackle, you just respect.
Now, I don't know if this is fair to say, but do you feel that historically in the African American culture that gayness, queerness is something that, you don't talk about, that you have to keep on the DL, that is uncomfortable for whatever reasons?
It can be for a lot of reasons. I'm Native and African American. My mom is African American and my dad is Sac Fox Indian. So both cultures, quite frankly, but I'll speak to the African American side, which is how I grew up. And I will say that most of any of the drama that I've seen comes from religion.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, we can't deny that they exist
Right.
all over. We can't deny that we exist in the family. They can't deny a whole lot of things, But when it comes down to church and being treated well mentally in situations in the Bible, that's a whole, I've had many podcasts with ministers, including my minister that married us, actually.
Oh, interesting. Uh-huh.
Yeah, she's actually a bishop, actually, that married us. And she had her own journey in the church, which is the reason why we chose her, because she understood some things that, we subscribed to, and even my pastor now, Kevin E. Taylor, he's amazing and in the family, and they just don't practice the word of hate or
Judgment.
that's not inclusive.
Right.
Yeah, they just don't do it, And religion has been used, if we want to tell the whole truth, religion has been used as a tool of fear.
Of course.
Do this or that, and control, and that's something that I had to work out. And again, I think early on, my spirit had been hit with situations that forced me to really pay attention to certain things. Like, case in point, when I was in high school, I remember we had a pastor that worked there, and he invited us all to the church for Easter. So my friends were like, oh, okay, I won't say his name because I think he's still alive, but they said, okay, well, we went to the church and we all got dressed up and, because that's what we were taught to do,
right.
And as soon as we were walking down together, it was crowded in the church. Everybody was there. It was like kind of the centralized church of the community. And he started talking crap. Oh, these people, da 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 da. And I'm like, and it took me like we were midway through the church, walking through to find seats in the pews before we realized he was talking about us.
Oh gosh.
And I stood there. I was like, and then he said, "Yeah, you." And I said, "Oh." I said, "Y'all, let's go."
Right.
And
out of there.
I may have given him a finger in his own church, actually. That's the rebel I was then. And I was just like, I'm not doing this.
Right.
And when I got to school the next day, I was like, really? Like, I actually went looking for him. I was like, that's what we do. You invite us somewhere so that you could do that?
And then, to try to like bring us down or make fun or judge us. So you obviously have still a spiritual practice or religious practice in your life.
I do.
Do you both do? Do you and your spouse?
Yes.
That's great. And do you go to church often?
We go to church when we can because we move around a lot.
Yeah.
Since COVID, he has church online. And anytime we can actually see him face to face, we go and visit. He knows we're there. And if we need him, he absolutely makes sure that he's there. It's a different, like, you can make it any kind of way you want to.
Right.
It doesn't have to be so structured. But he definitely does. He used to do live, actually still do online.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah, so many places went online during COVID, spiritual practicing places. My partner and I, we discovered the Unitarian Universalist Church in where we are now in St. Augustine, which is a non-denominational congregation. So there are a lot of LGBTQ and others there, some ex-hippies and things. I mean, it's very interesting. I actually really enjoy it. And we try to go when we can on Sundays or go online because they also do their service on Zoom. And it's been really nice. It's been really nice to sort of have something and also a way to build community,
I love that. If you can't make it, we have a huge TV in the living room. We put it on the screen and we just listen and we can still go about our day, but the word is still there.
Right. Exactly.
And he's so active on social media. Whenever the word drops in, it's not always on a Sunday. He'll have these little pickups like, I had a thought before I'm getting out of the car, and he'll just drop a word then, or this is what the word said to me today. And he'll just drop a word then. So he's always active in his practice.
Right. And then he'll post that on social media?
Yes.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. He's going to be a bishop this year. We're super proud of him.
Oh, great. That's wonderful. Yeah. So let me backtrack a little bit back to sort of that 90s scene. Did you have any LGBTQ role models when you were growing up and when you were first coming out?
I did. I had my first acting teacher, which was in high school. He ran the arts department for the Long Island district. And he was my gay coach, and he never said, hey, I'm gay, but you knew, and he was just somebody who was upright, very in his skin. He ran the district at that time was mostly, and I would say 85% children of color. And we loved him. Everybody loved him. There was no way you could escape. He was just magical to me. And as I grew up, he gave me my first job in the business.
Oh,
He
wow.
cultivated me. Yeah, he set me up for amazing things just based on skill set. He did that with a lot. He would have a lot of Broadway talent come in and coach us. He was one of Susan Lucci's coaches. So we were all like,
Oh, Susan Lucci from the soap operas, right? All my
yeah,
children.
yeah. When we were young, and he assigned us in his troupe.
Oh,
So
wow.
it just put us out in the world prepared.
Uh-huh. And is he still alive?
He is still alive, but we are still in contact.
No
Yeah.
way. Oh,
Yes.
that's great.
Way. Yeah. Every Pride we get together.
That's so wonderful. Isn't it great when you're like a young person and you have that teacher or coach or mentor, regardless of their sexual expression, but that is able to offer that to you? And in this case, even better that he happened to be also in the queer community. So when you say that there was something that was really, beyond the obvious, right, that he was a very nurturing and compassionate human being, it sounds like, was there something about him being gay that was also kind of resonated for you?
Yeah, for me, I just needed to see what we look like in the world, how we progressed, particularly in the area I was used to. There was nobody other than people on television that I saw, and I had no connection to any of those. But, he was always there to make sure that we were guided in the right way. Like when I became a stage manager, I was 15 years old. I remember one day I had a rough day. I was off Broadway, and he would, literally package me up and, put me on the train, or sometimes I ride in with him, and I'm working with all these adults. And I'm like, and he said, I trained you to know everything that you know how to do. Just do what you do. Right. He says, but in my mind, I'm like, these are adults. I have to listen to them, and they're actors, and they were all seasoned and, did what they did. And he was like, no, you were trained to do what you do.
Right.
You do that. They will respect you for that. They need to see that.
Right.
And like, he was there always for the emotional aspects of it. When I liked a girl, I remember him taking me out, like a father would, in a sense, and sitting me down and saying, well, what do you like about her? Just things. We would have many, he introduced me to sushi, actually. We had many conversations over sushi.
Yeah.
I wonder, actually, you're inspiring me to go back and tell him these things, because
I love that. I mean, I had a similar experience with my first boss, so to speak, who was a Welshman, wild man, straight, but he took me under his wing. I was a young woman, probably 20 years old, 21 years old, and just showed me like how to eat properly and etiquette, with what to use when and for what at the restaurants and the fancy restaurants, and language and about photography and the arts and theater. That always stayed with me.
We were working on a production. I forget which one it was, but I remember the studio was the Men's Golf Rehearsal Studios, Midtown. And I read and ate and drank everything theater. So I knew everything that was moving around, knew all the players, you name it, from the Schuberts to the men's, you name it, I knew it. So he's like, oh, okay, so you think you know everything, right? So, no, I don't know everything, but, that's me. So we're working in there one day, and somebody knocks on the door, and the door opens, and I look, and he looks, and then he looks back at me, and with this big smile. And I was like, Tommy Tune! And he was,
you can't miss Tommy. He's so huge.
Yeah. I was like, Tommy Tune. And he's like, I just wanted to see if you knew him. She's like, oh, she knows me. And he came in, he gave us a big hug. He gave us, congratulations on the success and yada, yada. It was just, he always did those he did the same thing with Michael Bennett, and actually kind of forged a connection with Michael Bennett and I when he did Dreamgirls. I was one of his assistants on the show. So it's just amazing, what he was able to do in my life. And there's never been anything, I consider him a spirit more so than a person, because he had male energy, he had female energy. He was colorless, know. That was at a time when we needed to see that, and he just embodied that. He lived on a yacht. All the kids would come on the yacht and hang out and do scripts in the summer. Yeah. He was a Nautilus. He was actually, I believe he was the dock master for South Freeport for a very long time.
Okay.
So when we would do scripts, if he wanted to get away, we would go do scripts and stuff in the summer, work on them and come back. He just gave us such a whole different
That's incredible. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a great
Ron
story.
Russo.
Yeah, Ron Russo. Thank you. So now let's switch into this nightlife scene. Why do you think in the early 90s there was such a moment of like lesbian visibility and this moment of not only like just with us, but, there was also a moment in popular culture, in the music scene, in hip hop, where, I don't know, there was just like this moment of empowerment for queer women.
I can't tell you why, but I can tell you that current was deep. And it was twofold, right? Because it was for the industry, you were told not to be you. And when you get my wife on your show, I really want you to sit down and talk to her because she has a very unique experience there. Like when
I'd love
people,
to talk to her, yeah,
yeah,
to
people
get her
literally
take
told
on
her,
it, yeah.
they literally told her, like, don't say a word, you're messing up the money. And, some of the people are in the news today with the BS. But anyway, that's not my experience. That's hers. I will say that I did recognize, like, once upon a time, it seemed to be nobody growing up in it. And like, I'll say, came out like maybe in the 80s.
Right.
And all of a sudden, we were everywhere, right? I mean, shape, size, color, it didn't matter. We were everywhere. We were in your businesses. We were behind your DJ booths. We were everywhere, and we were visible and we were connecting. That's the thing, and it stayed like that for a minute, and like I said, linking it back, just being in the New York, I'll just say, because that's where I partied mostly. Being in New York, it was an explosion, and it was and you guys were right there, right there. And when the explosion happened, to cultivate, make sure the women's experience was curated. And I didn't know. Can I ask you a question, actually?
Sure.
And I'll tell you why I'm asking the question, because those memories, coupled with the fact that I was a big room girl for a minute, like the smallest place I danced was like, I think this club called Better Days, which is very small. And then from there, I'd go to the Garage, which was where my godbrother, Larry Levan, played. But that wasn't an intimate woman spot. They were always mixed. When you actually, and Shari actually had the premise to want to do these parties, what inspired it?
So Shari and I had been talking about, we also loved going to dance spaces, and there were the clubs, right? The bigger clubs. And then there were some smaller kind of venues, maybe for mixed gay people. And then there was the Friday night click club that we would go to that, we really loved, but it had its own thing. It was a more like sex forward, like dark, sweaty dance venue. That was great, right? We all enjoyed that. But we felt that we needed to have something where we could actually kind of have a conversation with someone. Maybe, as we always joke, we joked at the time, like we wanted to get a drink in a proper glass, not a plastic cup. Right. We wanted to be above ground, not in a basement. And we wanted to, hear music and kind of feel fabulous about ourselves and be able to dress up and go out somewhere and see other women in a beautiful location. That was a challenge, right? Because where are we going to do that? Who is going to let us do that? Finding a space. And we got very lucky because we were like, screw it. We're going to walk into this joint that happened to be the hottest restaurant in New York City at the time, because it was in the beginning of like where restaurants became restaurant clubs, lounges at the, and Cafe Tobacco was in the gossip columns and Page Six, like every day with their celebrity sightings. And we just thought, well, we got nothing to lose to go up there and ask them. And he was like, well, a lesbian party? They're like, I don't know. I don't know that my boss is going to go for that the owner is going to go for that. But the only night that we can offer you is Sunday night because it's our slowest night. We're not going to pay you, but go ahead and do something and let's see what you can bring to the, to the venue. So Shari and I were like, okay, great. That's what we're going to do. And we scrambled to, make flyers, to look in our little phone books, because this was before cell phones and and social media, like you had to like call people, you had to go hand somebody a flyer personally, you had to go to other clubs and like, remember, like going to the clubs to flyer.
Yes.
And the first Sunday was beautiful and the owners were shocked. The bartender, in fact, remember, it was a female bartender. She heard there was going to be a lesbian party. So she, they hired her to come and work that night. When she was at the bar and women started coming in, and she looked over and said, "But when are the lesbians going to be here?" And they were like, "Those are the lesbians." Because, she, in her mind, had this stereotypical image of what a lesbian party was going to be like. And she was shocked, right? And so was the owner, and the rest is history, and then that party like was a big success and a catalyst, I think, from the conversations in the documentary that we're working on. It really helped a lot of women that were at that event sort of come out of their shell and recognize how powerful and beautiful they were. And they also created friendships that have lasted a lifetime at that event.
Yep. I remember after, because I was at that party, incidentally. And I remember afterwards, I was asked, or I was talking, I heard there was this party on the east side. And I was like, oh, yeah. Cafe du Bac. Why? What do you want to know about it? Because they would be protective about, okay, well, what did you hear? Because it wasn't a party for everybody. Oh, well, I heard it's a lesbian party. It's like, it is, but the word got out very quickly. But, it was what I liked about it, it was very respectful. We didn't have a lot of, and you have to tell me from your perspective, at least I didn't see from a patron perspective that people, now I did see some folk, but I didn't see that people were trying to bombard it and make it something else. Because, objectify the women in the parties.
Mm-hmm.
So a couple of people from the industry would come in with, whatever they were mistreated. But after you get there,
right,
you can't come in with no BS. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's too many.
Right. Yeah, no, I agree. I think that what was beautiful about the space and about the energy that was created there by the room, by the music, by Shari and I being the hosts, by what we wanted to do ourselves. I mean, we wanted to create it like it was, folks coming into our home, right? And you got to respect our home. And that carried out. And there was a diversity there. And I think there was a mutual respect, not only among the patrons and the women, but the people that would come in. I mean, certainly men came in, that. Yeah. Like gay men came in and straight men came in and straight couples. And they just wanted to be surrounded by the energy and the beauty, from what I've been told. And they thought they were going to go up in there and carry on or do some, be disrespectful. They got shut down immediately. I think they were very surprised at what they found. They didn't know what to expect. And when they walked in, they were like, oh, we got to behave here because these women are fierce.
Yeah. One of my male industry, I won't call him a friend, but somebody that, we all know this in the industry. I remember where I first met you.
Russell Simmons.
Yeah. I remember when I first met you, I was like, well, where is that? He said, that played the Cafe du Bac. And I was like, yeah, because you came in and walking in with one of my friends. And I was trying to figure out why she bought you. That was why.
Oh, yeah. Then he started coming in frequently.
But it's regular. Yes. Funny how you know exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Russell. Oh, yeah.
Bless his heart.
And then the beauty of Bardot, which, I really loved, is, it was smaller, more intimate, definitely felt more underground. And there was a slew of hip hop artists and singers and creatives that would come there on a Monday night. Who thought that anyone would go out on a Monday night, right? I really didn't expect that party to go for 8 years and be crowded every Monday night. And it did.
Every Monday. That's where you saw more of if I had to separate the two, I would say Tobacco was more like upscale, model-esque, chic, shishi, right? But not bougie to the point where you couldn't come in. Very, very, both venues were that way. Bardot was more living room kind of vibe, dark, sexy, like you can come in there and you could hide if you want to, but you really weren't, but you could if you want. I don't know what you could, But yeah, so I guess that's why it attracted a lot of the industry girls that were out in the world, but not out in the,
right.
out paper, so to speak, but not
Right,
in the
right.
world, you know.
I mean, now Latifah is out to the world, but she wasn't necessarily at that time. But you know, she was there every Monday night, and
My
obviously
wife was there. My
Monifa
now
was
wife,
there. Do you remember Monifa like sang for my birthday one time? I don't know if you
I
were there that night.
don't. I don't remember that.
My sister surprised me, and she asked Monifa to do a performance at Bardot because it was my birthday. And I walked in for work, and a little bit into the night, Monifa came out and she did this whole thing. The room went crazy, right? And all the gals that would go there every Monday.
Okay.
And it was a blast. Yeah, it was great.
All right. I definitely remember seeing her in there, and we would dance and party, and yeah, all the crew. You know, everybody was loving.
But
me,
you were all mutual friends, right? How did you initially like get together with Monifa? Just organically?
You know, it's funny because we've known each other on the periphery forever. We've always had friends that were connected. We didn't actually hang out one-on-one. A lot of people don't know this until like, I want to say 2009, you know, but we've known each other we'd see each other at different parts of outside of New York, like different places we were. And we'd always stop, show each other love, you know, but we would never, just by mutual connection. And being in the industry, moving fast, you know, and but it's always interesting. Always stopped to give each other hugs and love and that kind of thing, but kept it moving. You know, It wasn't until like 2009 that a friend of mine, a mutual friend of ours, actually another one, we knew everybody in common, you know, but came and I was having this PMS craving. So he wanted to take me to this. I said, I need chicken wings. I need some good quality chicken wings. So she came and picked me up. And we went to this place on Broadway called Malecon. You probably know Malecon.
Yeah.
But they have great rotisserie chicken. It's the sauce. It's the secret sauce. So we went there and they were out of chicken.
Oh, no.
They have another site somewhere close by. So I said, well, call ahead to see if they have chicken. They were out of chicken because something crazy, some phenomenon happened and both their restaurants got hit and they had no more chicken. But had a robust menu, but just nothing else. So it's like, you know, so now I'm PMS. I'm already out of my bed and I'm like, I'm being irascible, right? So she says, wait a minute, let me call my friend. So I don't know who she's calling. I'm like, where are you calling? Is it some place with a restaurant that has, you know? So she calls and she goes, come on, let's go. She says, we're going down the village, this place called Groove in the village.
I know Groove, yeah.
They have good wings. You'll probably appreciate them. They're not going to be Malecon level, but, you know, it won't be trash. I said, okay. We get in and we walk in the door and Mo's on the stage. So I was like, wait, is this a live bar? You know, live music bar? She says, oh, yeah. She says, you know Mo? And I was like, yeah. I said, but this is really intimate. I said, I don't want to be busting back wings. Like, yeah, like, you know, that wasn't my, you know. So she's like, don't worry about it, whatever. So she'd already ordered them. We came in there, we sat down, whatever. So Mo saw us from the stage come in and she smiled and we smiled back. I hadn't seen her physically in years at that point.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
And she started to sing. Now, it was also the first time outside of her recording stuff that I'd ever heard her. I never heard her live.
Oh,
you know?
Wow.
And people knew me as the kind of music snob, so to speak, because I was theater and my theater head at that point. So it's like, okay, you know, recording. I was into a lot of eclectic music. Me and Shari had kind of the same music thing. So it wasn't really the music that Heavy D had her singing. With the exception of a few tunes, weren't something that I had in rotation, you know. And it wasn't her voice either. It was the voice that he created for her. They curated together, let's just say.
Right.
So hearing her live and hearing her recorded, two different things, you know. And I was just like, where did all this come from? You know, so Jazz was like, I told you. I was like, but that's not what the record. She's like, I know. And it was crazy. And then, you know, if you ever heard her live and you said you had, you know, difference in voice and tone and everything, right? And now it's even better, I think, because
that's great.
Cultivated, yeah. And then after that, we just became, you know, inseparable. You know, after she got off stage, we started, you know, talking, and I immediately went on.
Offered her some chicken wings. It's a good thing they ran out of chicken at Malecon, otherwise this never would have happened.
You know what I'm saying? You know, it's really Malecon to think. Huh? But, you know, we started, you know, joking and laughing. And I was like, you fronted on the American public. I said, you gave us this recorded music in that voice and we didn't, and this is not what it is. So that we started the banter, and then the banter became something else. And she thought she was being flirty. Her version of the story is going to be much different than mine. She takes it in the lead and I take it in the...
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So, but it's fun.
And then how many years now is it that you've been together?
Together 14, married 10.
Wow.
Just made our 10th year this year.
Congratulations. And
Thank
my
you.
understanding is that your wedding in Honolulu was the first African American lesbian wedding that was televised.
Yes. Yes. Can you believe that?
What was that experience like? That must have been intense.
Initially, we didn't want to do it. It was at a time when there was a lot of turmoil about whether or not rights would be passed.
Mm-hmm.
There was a whole lot of stuff, going on, and just things weren't civil. People were all in calling and doing things that just didn't make any sense for human beings, right? So there were a lot of Christian sensibilities wrapped around a lot of the decision making, and it just didn't serve us not to.
Right.
We were in a loving relationship, and folks needed to see how this was. Now, all the time we were filming R&B Divas, it was interesting because we started getting inboxes to our email. Some were wonderful. Some were like, what the hell are you doing? And, they have this phrase that I cannot stand, shoving things down your throat.
Right.
I'm like, well, your mouth has to be open, like you have to be interested. You have to be in the room for that to happen. Like, why are you here? You don't have to have anything shoved down your throat. Right. And then there were the other ones that were curious, and then a lot of folk that were tuned into the show. So it hit my inbox, it hit her inbox, it hit the inbox of TV One. And then we said to ourselves, what would this look like? Should we do it? And we were already planning to be married, but not necessarily on TV at the time.
Right.
But then Mo said, well, you know what? I'm filming, I'm scheduling everything else around in my life. Then this has to be scheduled in too. So we sat and we talked to the producers who were willing to do it. Actually, they came to us to want to do it. We turned them down the first time, but then we said, you know what? Let's revisit this.
Right.
And we did, and showed them the abbreviated process, because it's for TV, so you don't get to see everything, but a lot of stuff was taped that, I wish that we could see the whole entire thing, minus the edits, but it was a beautiful day filming it because we did all of the wedding stuff prior to the planning, and up to and including, and it's interesting when you're trying to do television, either we're going to do it or we're not going to do it. So there were a couple of places that were vying for us to be able to do it, right? But the reality was, in the countries that they were in, they weren't LGBT friendly.
Right. I was going to ask.
I was not going to do that.
And be hypocritical or your own safety. Yeah.
Yeah. And like there's one huge conglomerate. In fact, if I could say it, Hard Rock Cafe. They wanted to do it in Mexico. Right. And so when we asked, okay, can we get the marriage license and certificate there? They were like, oh no, because the country doesn't. So then why would we be doing that?
Yeah, exactly.
We're already getting enough stink mail. I don't want to, do that. Make people think the Hard Rock is the place to go because we've advertised it that way, and they get there and
you can't get married there, right?
Right. So Hawaii was on the verge of they had just passed in Hawaii, right? And we were like, look at this, Hawaii just passed. So we were like, okay, you know what? Then Hawaii it is. And we went there and were celebrated, and and they found a hotel that was that could house it and make the production end of it. And the rest is history. It's very intimate, very beautiful,
I saw some of the images online, and it looked really beautiful. What was the ultimate feedback that you got from the ceremony and from you and Monifa sharing this with the public?
Amazing. In fact, there was one particular woman whose information I still may have somewhere. I'd have to dig for it. I don't know why she sent me, and I blocked her. And she came back another way and continued the conversation. And because I don't check my inboxes a lot, it wasn't really on me that way, but I was like, this lady has a lot of shit to get off, like, cause she keeps coming back to somebody she does not like and care for. But then after she saw the wedding, what she shared was, and if she had done that in the beginning, it probably would have given her a lot of peace, that her daughter, she's in conflict with her daughter coming out. All of this stuff was stuff that she couldn't say to her daughter, so she targeted us, right? Right. But after the wedding, she sent the most loving letter. It almost felt like I heard her crying in the letter, like, thank you so much. She had like a come-to moment of how love is love. Yeah.
And you have to embrace your child.
Yes. And she made her daughter watch the wedding because she said she didn't even know what that looked like, what it could be. And, and I, honestly, I could say maybe even there's some things that I don't see differently, so I don't understand how other people don't until they express it, what can't you see? I mean, you see two men, two women, man, woman, it's the same kind of thing together, people expressing love.
That is, it's like the fear of the unknown, right? If you don't know it, if you haven't seen it, if you don't know what it looks like, if you haven't been able to express it or see the visual expression of what love between two women can look like, they have in their minds. I don't know what they have in their minds, usually it's something deviant that is like, and that makes no sense, right? But, when you see the beauty of just two humans that want to spend the rest of their lives together, what's not, to appreciate and understand about that?
Right. And what does your brain do that clicks to from seeing two people together loving, right? Because all we ever talk about is love. What does your brain do automatically that clicks you into their bedroom scene? That I'm more
on them, right?
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, why are you projecting all that sex on me like that? Like, I didn't even invite you to my bed, which is one of the reasons why we didn't want to film anything with us laying in bed together.
Right.
Because that was always, like you waiting for the sex scene. And I'd seen other production companies when they were doing like, whatever they were doing, shout out to them. But you always had these two women in a jacuzzi. And that's what carries that stigma. Because quite frankly, we know, Wanda, we ain't always in jacuzzis.
Exactly.
If we are ever in jacuzzis. Like, what is this thing and who are you appealing to?
I know, exactly. Who's your audience that wants to see this? Go watch, porn.com or whatever.
Exactly. Like, that ain't how we live our lives. We are loving. We have families. We have grandchildren. I have 6 grandchildren.
Please, same here. I got a couple.
Okay, my grandchildren don't want to see me in no jacuzzi.
I got no time for a jacuzzi.
Hilarious.
Oh, that is hilarious. But so we didn't talk about R&B divas. So that was mostly, that was Monifa's thing. But since you were in her life too, so you were part of the show as well, no?
Yes.
Yeah.
It was
and that was a big success.
Yes, it was actually. And it did a great franchise in LA as well. Still buzzing. People still want to see that back. It's funny. We had a conversation about that just the other week. It was a docuseries about, at the time, the inaugural 5 were Nikki Daniels, or Nikki Gilbert from Brownstone, Faith Evans, Kiki Wyatt,
oh, nice,
Selena Johnson, and Monifa.
That's wonderful. That's cool.
Added Angie Stone and Mila and
wow.
72. Yeah. We were all at the wedding, incidentally.
They were. Oh, that must have been a hoot. That wedding must have been on fire.
Oh, it was. It was a big time.
Did you have a lot of singing going on?
Oh yeah. Yeah, actually, the only difference in the wedding episode is that who actually sang us coming down the aisle was Rasan Patterson. It wasn't Kiki. Kiki sang the reception.
Oh, okay.
But Rasan sang the actual, we chose one of his songs. Can We Wait a Minute was our wedding theme song.
Oh, wow. I love it.
Yeah.
Do you feel that attitudes have shifted in the music scene now in regards to, as being open and having a career, as we see, there are multiple artists that are not only open in their careers, but singing about same-sex relationships?
I think it's shifting. I think it's an ing. And I think since Clive wrote his book and told the truth, I think it made it easier for a lot of folks. Because, I think that there were quite a few people behind the helm of people not telling,
Right.
And then people make the choice, there's some, and I do believe that everybody has a right to share their story when they can, or if they want to, and then there are people that say, hey, this is what I'm selling. I'm not selling you my personal, and that's it, right. And that's fine too. I'm not a hater there either,
right.
Either way, I think it's an ing, because it's behind the scenes. There's still a lot of gunk that needs to be cleaned out,
Do you still feel like there's the keep it to yourself kind of thing? Just do the music. You don't need to be out and about or talking about this or that.
It depends on the artist. I think that authenticity in those matchups, I think it hurts an artist to be singing love songs only designated toward women. And, you don't particularly care for women that way.
Right.
I think you can get tracked off in a minute,
Right, right,
because,
right,
your female fans will make you, and when they find out, it's such a, like there's still
right.
artists that are in their graves that still get that.
And on the flip side, there's also like my music and my art reflects my authentic self. And that doesn't necessarily mean that I have to be singing about, you know, my same sex partner. I can sing about whatever I want to sing about, so yeah.
Right. Love, universal.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have a gender. It doesn't have it's just universal. So, I just think that today with social media, we have broken that fourth wall.
Mm-hmm.
So in order to and I know that some of these business decisions are made on how popular you are. It may not even be necessarily your talent, but it's about, how much influence or how popular you are, and that has nothing to do with what you're actually selling.
Right.
And in that, you don't want to be somewhere where what you're saying is different from who you are. And
Right. Right.
someone, because you get dragged that way,
Mm-hmm.
we're gone of the days where people can be mysterious. I think Janet and Michael and them came out of that realm where you could be whatever, and not have to talk about it.
Right.
But nowadays, it's a whole different landscape.
Yeah.
You have to be a little more accessible,
Mm-hmm.
It's just about what you want them to access.
Right. Right. Yeah. It's the privacy is just like kind of out the window now with all of the social media anyway. So, yeah.
Yeah, you got to fight for it. You got to fight for it. And I find personally, the more private I want to be, the less I am.
Mm.
So I've kind of sculpted it in a way where I stay in the public,
Mm-hmm.
that way you don't, it's kind of like right in your face.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
you don't really
Right.
get caught up. There's some cities that we go to and they're like, still. And I'm a New Yorker, so a native New Yorker. So I have a different way of managing that stuff. Like, wait, hold on. You're not getting anything until you relax. You need to relax. Yeah, it was like I went through a thing where people were like publicly assaulting me.
Oh
And I
my
was
goodness.
like, no.
I know. That's a lot.
I could not even, I could not even fathom that.
Right, right, right.
Literally running behind me in the Port Authority. Do you know how many times?
Like screaming your name?
Well, not screaming my name, but I'm walking and I have my headphones on, but not blaring,
Uh-huh.
I'm hearing like kids actually running and someone said, turn around. Next thing I know, I got people on my back, like security's taking them off me.
Oh,
I had
no.
a girl jump over the bus. Somebody, like she was not the row behind me, but the row behind that. She's jumping over the seat trying to, and I'm like, she pulled my hair. I'm like, yo,
Oh, no.
Subway platforms that were not safe,
Yeah.
I'm like, you have to move a different way. New York, because we always see people, like we shouldn't be a stranger to that, but the new culture is different.
Right.
It's a little different.
Right, right. So I know that you do some advocacy work since the landscape of LGBTQ communities have advanced and changed. What have you seen reflected back in terms of how people are feeling or engaging with each other? Or what comes up for you in terms of advocacy now with your groups?
There's a lot less homelessness than it was when I first started working. Like kids were literally living and suffering on the streets and having hard times finding shelters that would not be abusive, or get them in a deeper situation. At the time, I was spearheading a lot of what they call congregate care facilities for kids. At one point, it was 10 through 17, and another part was transitional from 17 to 23, trying to get them. And a lot of my population was LGBT youth. I've done different modalities of housing, up to and including HIV/AIDS housing. Mm-hmm. So I don't do that anymore. I've retired out of that. But in terms of like still being an advocate for coming back and doing keynote stuff, I do, because that's still part of my heartbeat, making sure the kids are good. We've done a lot of stuff with Hedrick Martin Institute.
Of course, yeah.
As well. And, just making sure that, if we're needed, we are there and being able to help along the way. Right. One of my dream projects, which, I don't know, I've had a couple of them, but was to be able to do a whole center, that was part commercial and part residential and be able to have it run by the kids that come through so that you're able to, do that. So
that's
depending, great. Kind of have an idea of how much that would cost. I'm still working in that area, but
I have another friend. She works for an LGBTQ organization, but they just finished a build out of housing for LGBTQI plus seniors because they were having issues with a lot of these queer folk that are now transitioning into elder care without being childless or, alone. Their mutual friends are also of a certain age. And to be able to go into a facility with like-minded folks with the care and the entertainment and whatever that it is that might be more specific to their sensibilities was something that they felt was needed, and they were able to get this off the ground. So I thought that was great. Yeah.
I love that. That's amazing, because I know the work that it takes to do that. That's a labor of love. And to be able to see that project come off and see
right,
kids
and to get the funding for it.
That's amazing. And hats off to her. Hats off to her.
Is there anything else that we haven't discussed that you might like to mention?
Okay, when is the documentary? How are you guys doing with it? Where's that right now? Like, how is that coming along?
The documentary has been a labor of love as well, since it's independent and it has to be funded by, individual donations and grants. The grant scene has been laborious and also not as successful as we would want it to be, because, there's so many different topics that are out there, and maybe this topic isn't necessarily at the forefront of people's grant giving, because there's so many things happening. And as you know, there's always depending on what's going on in the world, there are funds and documentary sort of issues that sometimes take precedence. But we are in post, kind of. We've done all of our interviews. We've done a lot of editing. It's been cut down from 62 interviews and hours and hours and hours to 3 hours. And now we need to whittle that down to an hour and a half. So we're making progress, but it's been hard because, then life takes over, right? We have to work. My director, Karen, and her partner just had a baby. I've been elder caring for years. My mom just passed in January. So that, that was a lot of side distractions. But we're getting closer and closer. And I'm so excited because I can't wait to share this story,
That'd be great to do around a Pride Month, to have that premiere somewhere, even in private theater, or I have some close connections to national and international theater
stuff. Yeah, definitely.
At me when you're ready, or I can actually ask her some questions about how something like that, or if there are any grants that she's aware of.
Right. Yeah. No, I definitely, when it's ready, I want to do the whole circuit of all the festivals and obviously all the Pride festivals everywhere, because those are peeps.
Yeah, landmark it. It has to be landmark. Yeah, it deserves to be landmark.
Yeah. Oh, it's historical for sure. Right. It's a great story.
And I'll say this to you. You said one last thing, and I saved this for last particularly. Because of you and Shari and the inspiration that was connected into my mental Rolodex, I opened my own venue, right, in Newark, New Jersey. Now, I'll say I opened because it was open and very successful for a year and a half before I started having major partner conflicts. One thing that I was inspired by too many greats, and including yourselves in that, to ever do anything that's subpar. I don't even have that in my head. So I've learned a lot in terms of picking partners that make sense, that are in it for the right reasons, and that are from the culture, right? I'm going to do it again.
Great.
I'm going to do it again where we actually own the building, and I'm working on that now. So wherever we land, I will be tapping you.
Please let us know. Of course, not only do we want to support, but we'll get it out there, get folks to know where you are. And this is the venue that you had where you had live music there as well? Yeah.
Yes. That's coming to actually an official close, So I'm just, we're setting up. I've talked to folks that I know can take it to a different level, and I'm getting rid of the partner that I had before. And I have such a loving nucleus around of like-minded people to want to move this forward.
Oh, yeah, this will happen. Yeah. It'll definitely happen. And you wanted to be in the same location? Well, in terms of like in Newark, was it in Jersey?
Newark, New Jersey, yeah. I don't think so. And nothing against the community there. It's just different. I will look for a place that speaks to the heart of what I want to do. So, and we'll see.
Oh, the best of luck. And please let us know if there's anything we can do to assist you in that. That would be incredible. Has to happen.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for listening. For more, subscribe to Sundays at Cafe Tabac, the podcast. You can also learn more about us and our film at cafetabacfilm.com and at Cafe Tabac Film on social media. Please share your thoughts with us, and if you have a coming out story that you'd like to share, reach out to us. This episode was recorded at the Newsstand Studio at Rockefeller Center, here in the heart of New York City. Special thanks to Joseph Hazen and Karen Song for their support. See you next time.